everybody, and welcome to the AI Integrations Podcast. Joining me today is Spencer Thomson, CEO of AI Integrations, and you have me, Ben Cowell, the CMO of AI Integrations. Spencer, you want to introduce yourself?
What's up, everyone? I am Spencer Thomson. I'm the founder and CEO of AI Integrations. Just here to democratize some AI knowledge and talk about AI. Excited to have you all.
I love it. So tell me a bit, like how, I'm still new to the company. The company's new itself. I'd love to learn a bit about the story, kind of how you got into AI, a bit of background on why now, what's going on with it. Kind of fill me in on the story. How did AI Integrations kind of come about?
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to grow up with a computer science background and be taught about the power of data as a young kid. And in 2014, I actually learned about AI in a very different sense than it is now. It wasn't an LLM, it was more just a statistical computing, but that led me to being a huge computer nerd. I worked as a mountain guide for a while. And then while I was working as a mountain guide, I was developing websites for my friends who were also mountain guides. As people needed help building websites, even in the 2020s, 20 years after WordPress came out. And then in 2022, I watched a TED Talk with Andrew Ning. And Andrew was talking about how AI is really going to be this transformative technology for all these businesses. And I kind of had this aha moment where I realized, if most people are still struggling to build a quality website, they're not really poised and ready to take advantage of AI in this huge AI era we got coming up. So, I've been strong-willed and trying to really get AI into the power of the people ever since, and thus our company mission statement to democratize AI.
So you said take advantage of the power of AI, right? And you want to bring that power to people. Why now?
So the best way to answer that question, Ben, is through the lens of something I know you and I have talked a lot about, and I actually gave a presentation on when you and I met. It's called the AI trifecta, and it's how I view all of this stuff. There's three main components to AI, if you ask me, and a lot of industry pros tend to agree as well. Algorithms, i.e., the computer code that makes it all work, the fancy stuff, let's say, compute, and data. And these three things have seen a massive explosion over the past decade in particular. We've had massive algorithmic breakthroughs. Compute is widely abundant now. On that note, NVIDIA hit 4 trillion in valuation this week, largely due to AI and compute power. And then data, with the digital world we now live in, there's just so much data out there for these models to leverage and really create real value.
Was there a single tipping point? Was there a moment where those three kind of hit a point where was there an aha moment where now's the time? Like, how did those come together to make this really, the last couple of years be the beginning of this AI revolution, if you will, and the start of this new AI era? What came together specifically now? Because you talk about algorithms, compute, and data. Those have always existed. What changed?
All three have really just seen major advancements. You're right in saying AI has been a thing actually since the 50s. A man named Alan Turing came up with the term the Turing test in the 50s, which is kind of incredible to look back on now over 70 years later. But algorithms, in my opinion, was what really was the last piece of the puzzle that started this current boom. And OpenAI's algorithm for the original ChatGPT, GPT 3.5, that's what really showed the world that, hey, if you have a really great algorithm with some good computing power and some good data, it'll all come together and to really create value for the customer. And, simultaneously, NVIDIA's had massive advancements in their compute. And, in the 2020s, we now have access to massive cloud compute. So there's companies outside of the big tech companies that can access enough compute to make I'll say great AI systems even. And then furthermore on that, like I was saying, we're in a digital world and that's only been increasing. So the abundance of data, there's never been more data to really train these models on.
Got it. So now is the time that it's coming together. People are going crazy. The data's there, as you said, and the compute power is really there with the cloud. That's growing rapidly. As you mentioned, NVIDIA hit that, was it 4 trillion market cap, 2 trillion market cap? What was it, 4?
4 trillion market cap.
4 trillion market cap, which is insane, right?
So it's more than the UK's GDP for perspective.
Are we looking at peaking now, soon, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? Is this are we gonna have a Moore's law here? Is AI going to double every year? I mean, what are we looking at for the growth? We kinda hit this starting point where it's hit the point where everyone's involved. Everyone's going, "Ooh, yeah, and there's something to it. It's working now," right? Where's it
Yeah, I think it's really we've hit this inflection point in 2022, 2023, where a lot of big players started doubling down and a lot of other companies realized, the power of AI. You have players like Salesforce, which don't necessarily do any of those three things, but they bring it all together in one package for a customer. That's what we do as well. So I see we're at an inflection point, and I honestly think the growth will be exponential over the next decade, and we are kind of on a linear trajectory up to 2022 ish, so to speak.
so linear up to around 2022, and now it's basically exponential, and how far do you foresee that going?
I see it going into a realm that is hard for most of us to comprehend, quite frankly. I think AI is poised to change the world more than the internet or the mobile phone did. And I know that's a bold claim, but a lot of industry experts agreed with me on that. I'm forgetting. I believe it's Sundar Pichai, or no, it was actually Andrew Ning, the same fellow I mentioned earlier, who was given that TED talk. He said AI will be the most important discovery of mankind since electricity, and I think that really puts it into perspective.
That's incredible. When you say the most important, discovery of mankind or invention of mankind since electricity,
Yep.
how do you see that actually changing our day-to-day lives, in the coming years?
I think let's talk about how it's changing it right now as is. I mean,
Okay.
the abundance of information. I'm definitely an early adopter. It's part of my job and role here at AI Integrations, and just my nature as a tech nerd. But we're seeing the access to information be so much easier. 5 years ago, you had to go searching through Google search to find quality information. Stack Overflow as a developer was huge 5 years ago. It was your Reddit for how do I do this code wise, and Stack Overflow is dead now because everyone just asks their favorite LLM what they should do. So right now, it's really a informational tool, and we're starting to see that tool start to actually be able to perform actions. And that's where I'm sure you've heard the term been AI agents. So we're really starting to see the emergence of not just an informational tool with AI, but an AI that can do things on behalf of the client or user.
So you hit on a really interesting point there, the fact that it can do things. And one of the things I do want to get into a little bit later is the things it can do now, specifically for SMBs. That's where our focus is going to be. But before we get to that, I would love it if you could give just a kind of brief overview of what really is AI in the sense of for us in the way we use it. What is it? What is it actually doing? There's a lot of trepidation and I would even dare say fear around AI right now. Could you kind of demystify it a bit? Just kind of let us know what this is, what we do and don't have to be afraid of, and how it's working kind of on the not the philosophical level, but on the just, explain to the novice what is this new AI we're playing with? How is it working? And is it going to take over and kill us all?
That's a hot topic to start off with there, Ben. So my opinion on that is that it's what it's doing right now is, again, it's mainly an informational tool that we're starting to see the emergence of taking actions. That informational tool is basically it's processing way more data than we as humans would be capable of processing. So, deep research is a tool by OpenAI that I love and that, you and I have talked about a good bit. If you haven't tried deep research, I'd heavily recommend trying it out. And so deep
I
research,
have dabbled with it. It's fun.
yeah. And so deep research can conduct a level of research that us as a human, it would take probably a week, I would guess, for me to create a comparable report to a deep research report. And now I can click a button, leave it going in the background, do some other tasks, and then come back to it about 15 minutes later. And I have, like, we'll call it a college senior slash, potentially master's level of intellect in whatever subject field I want, like a very well written thesis or report. And so the ability to just do that on whatever I want. I use it a lot in a business context. I also use it in like my personal life as well. Like, what golf clubs should I buy, for example? Why not throw that into deep research and compare all the current models, etc. Computers, many things like that as well.
So you're basically saying it's a data tool. It can look at, understand, analyze your data at kind of that college level, if you will. What about taking over? Do we have to fear it?
So again, that's a hot topic and a hot question. I personally don't think we do. I think with any technological revolution, for example, the internet or mobile, inherently there's a lot of fear at the beginning, and that fear typically comes from a place of understanding or a lack of understanding, I should clarify. So, when the internet first came out, there's a fear that, it's going to replace all libraries, and librarians are, for lack of a better term, screwed and out of a job. And there's some truth to that, but the benefit far outweighed the con of, the internet now has allowed all of us to have access to this incredible amount of information. And a child who wouldn't have had access to that information via a library, say in a third world country, with a laptop now can access essentially the world's knowledge in a browser. And so I think that AI is poised to change our lives in ways we can't imagine. And I'm sure that it's going to disrupt some things, but in that process, I think we're going to see more positive than negative by a very large margin.
So the next Terminator isn't going to be real life.
I won't sit here and promise you that, but I'd give it a 1, 2, 3% chance.
Okay.
You've seen a lot of dystopian quotes about, oh, it's 50-50. And, I think
Now,
that that's coming from a place of fear.
now, if we want to get scary on this podcast, we can start getting into the realities what a 1, 2, or 3% chance of an AI takeover actually looks like. But let's skip that one for now.
We'll save that for a future
That's
podcast.
for a Friday night podcast with drinks in hand, not the afternoon.
I concur.
So, okay, we don't have this big danger right now. We're not worried about it taking over. It's a data tool.
Correct.
How is it going to be bigger than electricity then?
It's really going to start taking action. So one thing we do at AI Integrations right now is a customer service chatbot. So it's able to interact with your customers on your website, and that's really just we'll call it allowing businesses to leverage technology and be more efficient than before. Again, the internet allowed businesses to leverage tech.
Let me pause you right there
Yeah.
for a second. That's a great framing. Allowing businesses to leverage technology to become more efficient.
Correct. Yeah.
Is that the goal we should be aiming for, in a small business when we're approaching AI? How can we leverage this technology for efficiency?
Efficiency, a further understanding. Yeah, those are two huge ones right now. And again, with this transformative of a technology, it's kind of hard to predict 5, 6, 7 years out. But in the next year to two, I really think that efficiency is going to be the main driver of this innovation and why it's going to have such an impact. One thing we've talked about and that we're working on AI integrations is an AI that can, take phone calls on behalf of a pizza restaurant and take those orders and stuff. And, something like that, I just see being such a value add to the pizza restaurant that, that's just one use case, one example. But
on that note, actually, I think it'd be great for the podcast here. How about you real quickly tell the story of the dream, the pizza restaurant dream, that kind of as you told it to me.
Yeah. So, it's Friday night. It's 1 a.m. and your local college town, and the local pizza restaurant's popping off with a bunch of drunk college kids trying to get their pizza. And right now, the way that's done is you're going to call the pizza restaurant, and it's going to go hi, or you'll enter a queue more than likely because you're not the only drunk college kid at 1 a.m. who wants pizza. And so humans having to answer that, deal with all the drunk kids. There's a queue, etc. The paradigm shift I see is an AI is able to answer that. There's going to be no queue. If you want to speak to it in Spanish, so be it. If you want to speak to it in French, that's cool too. You get my point. So that efficiency gain of, rather than having to wait 20 minutes to take 30 orders manually, you can take all 30 of those orders in a 2-minute time frame with an increased level of accuracy over, your standard employee as well.
So basically what I'm hearing is instead of worrying about it taking over the world, it's going going to solve the problem of drunk kids getting pizza after partying at night. And honestly, I'd say that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, one of the many problems and one of the many use cases I think it'll solve. It's definitely will solve a lot more problems than that. OpenAI's mission statement actually is a fun one that not a lot of people are talking about. Their mission statement is to solve physics with AI. So if you think about the implication of that, that is massive, and what that could mean for everything from electric vehicles to power to just the way we have compute and power in society.
And you mentioned their mission statement there, and it's a nice, easy transition. Tell me about the mission of AI integrations.
Our mission is to democratize AI, and so we don't mean that in the sense of people hear democracy and they think, oh, it's a vote, it's one and two parties. That's not how we're thinking of it. That's not actually the true meaning of the word. The meaning of the word is to give the power to the people. So again, going back to my founding thought, I think the dystopian future that scares me with AI is, we have 10 to 30 companies that are leveraging it like we've never seen before. And the 33 million small businesses in America, for example, aren't able to leverage that same technology. So I really think it could be a great thing that kind of helps level the playing field, for example. Something I've pointed out to you and many other people when we talk about this is that Amazon, for example, can afford to have a call center with 1,000 people ready to go. Your average small business in America can't. So I quite frankly think it's poised to help small and medium sized businesses more than the large enterprises.
So you mentioned the large enterprises have access. We're trying to democratize it, bring that power to the people.
Correct.
What are those current barriers to entry for AI that we're going to help people get past?
Yeah, so I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but it's something like two-thirds of businesses were asked to, or two-thirds, a company called Color Whistle did a poll, and approximately two-thirds of people, small business owners, when responding to that question, they said their number one barrier to adoption is AI expertise. And again, that really goes back to my founding thought of, people still have a hard time understanding website builders 20 years after the invention of WordPress. They're drag and drop. They are quite frankly not that difficult. So if you can't understand a website drag and drop builder right now, you're just not positioned to take advantage of AI in house. And so
And
our
so, how
main
yeah, how are you getting around that?
our goal is to allow small and medium businesses to outsource effectively their AI problems to us. We've developed a product that we think is universally applicable to most small businesses. And then also another thing that we like to do is we like to take small business and medium businesses AI visions and turn them into a reality. We just have a talk on, is this possible? What it would cost? Will you see ROI, etc. And then we can really frame it from a technical and AI native perspective and allow them to have that understanding without having an in-house AI engineer. As someone who employs AI engineers, I can tell you that their salaries are pretty high, and they're hard to come by, as we'll probably talk about later in this podcast. So the main goal is to allow people to have access to that quality of AI engineering for their business, whether it be through a pre-built product and or a custom solution we build for businesses.
Gotcha. Okay, changing topics a bit.
Yeah,
I'd like to get back to the trifecta a little more.
yeah,
We talked a bit about the why now, right? And you were talking about how, we're getting there. The algorithms have gotten there, the compute's gotten there, and the data, we just have the data now. With the data centers, we finally have the volume of it, et cetera. And due to the fact that it's all in the cloud, it's reachable. With the internet in the cloud, it's not where it's effectively stored everywhere. It's almost a universal database, if you will, that we're running off of. Great, those came together. Then where did we go from there? Like, I mean, Grok 4 went live July of this year, right?
yeah. Very recently this week.
Yeah, and we're looking at that's the one where they're hitting that kind of physicist grade level reasoning, right? Well, where are we going with this? Like on that, like I dig in a bit more into that trifecta. Where is it now? Where is it going? Kind of, if you don't mind pulling the pieces apart a bit there and dive
Yeah.
in.
So algorithms are, are a real big topic right now. And AI algorithms, are currently mainly written by AI engineers. Which I don't know if you've seen in the news, Ben. Meta's paying absolutely insane money to kind of, for lack of a better term, poach some of the world's best AI talent from OpenAI, from Apple. They just took Apple's head of AI engineering on, I
It's
think, some 7 or 8 figure signing bonus.
yeah, very
Um,
similar to what you saw in the early .com days. The poaching is getting crazy.
Yeah, so because the talent, the human talent of engineering is that big algorithmic component. There is talk in the community, and we will hit this point where AI algorithms or AIs are able to work on their own algorithms, but we are not there yet. For perspective, Meta is not paying this kind of money for even a top 1% engineer. They're paying this kind of money for a top 1% of the top 1% engineer. So AI is really good at computer science, but it's not that top 1% of the top 1% yet.
How long do you think till it's going to be getting there?
My speculation is within the next 24 months, 18 to 24 months is my guess. You'll hear different things from it'll never get there because, it just won't be able to push that limit. And then you'll hear things from it'll be in the next 3 to 6 months. My personal speculation is 18 to 24 months is when we'll see the AI that is, in a sense, improving because it is such a good software engineer that it can help engineer its own software.
Gotcha. So, my theories on the 18 to 24-month time frame is basically that we won't recognize the world as we see it today. My assumption is 18 to 24 months from now, it's going to be, my AI will contact your AI. The two of them will hash out all the details for me to get what I want and for you to get what you want type thing and handle it all. So, if I'm hungry type thing, I'll just tell my AI, I'm hungry, and my AI will go through and say, okay, here's what he ate every night for the last 3 months. He doesn't like to eat the same thing, too often, but he does like this, that, and the other thing. Okay, he's probably in the mood for this today based on the patterns. It'll reach out to that restaurant. My AI will talk to that AI. It'll put the orders together and set up delivery and payment and everything else. It'll probably even negotiate costs, et cetera, based on busyness of restaurants, et cetera, which will then go and have most likely within 24 months, it'll have a Optimus robot walking into the restaurant, picking up my food from a Optimus robot, handing it to him, climbing into its robo taxi, driving it to my house, walking up, sitting at my door, going knock knock, and then driving away. At which point my Optimus will go to the door, pick it up, go prepare it on my table for me. And if I'm lazy enough, it'll even pick up the fork and feed it to me. That's kind of where I see the world in 18 to 24 months. What's your thought?
I concur. I think that the technology will be there. My hesitation on that is whether us as a society will feel comfortable with that. I think the technology will be there, and the early adopters will be able to do things like that in the next 18 to 24 months. I do agree.
My assumption is honestly that the technology will be, for what I just laid out, the technology will 100% be there. It'll just be a matter of we're not going to be utilizing it at a large scale yet. But I, go 20 years into the future, and the kids grow. My kids are never going to drive a car, is my guess in their life.
Yeah, Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, said something I found absolutely fascinating. I think it was this week, it might have been last week, but he was doing an interview and he said, Sam Altman's a new father, and he said, my kid will never be smarter than artificial intelligence, which
Which is
is
crazy.
mind blowing to think about.
Okay, so there's an interesting note. My kid will never be smarter than artificial intelligence. So the next generation of humans, how are they going to know when the AI is lying to them effectively? And here's the thing. It's I don't remember who first came up with the theory, but it's the concept that if someone's 1% smarter than you, it might have been Scott Adams who really talked about it, coined it. If someone's 1% smarter than you, it might as well be Einstein versus an infant. Because as soon as someone's smarter than you, no matter what they say, you have to assume it's true because you don't know better. What happens when it gets to the point that humans no longer know better than AI because they haven't done the critical thinking, the reading, et cetera, themselves? Who's going to regulate it?
That's where I think that a variety of models is key, and not having one source for information, let's say. And that's again kind of going back into our founding mission of democratizing AI, making sure we all have access to it. But if there's just a few players and just a few big models, that is an interesting question. I will also, I don't want to sound dystopian or burst your bubble here, but the cutting edge models are already smarter than about 90% of the population. So we are already there for most of us.
And so what happens when people can no longer tell it it's wrong because they just don't know? Interesting,
That
right?
that is an interesting question, and again, it's I mean, you could argue the same thing's happening with search engines. That's our current source of data and information. We're not smarter than Google and all the Google search engines, so you kind of have to trust but verify against other sources and other information, and that's what I think will be essential in this world of AI being smarter than us. Is having multiple AIs that if Grok says one thing, let's go over to Claude and check it. Then Gemini, then ChatGPT. And if all four of them say the same thing in unison, well, we got to hope that all four of those companies aren't in cahoots. I don't think they are. But cross-checking information is going to be essential in that world.
And then on the tech front, as it keeps moving forward, and it kind of ties into all that, what are your thoughts on things like Neuralink, for example? Elon Musk's stated goal with that is to get to the point where anyone could go get one as effectively an outpatient surgery
Yep.
and give you a direct link to a computer. Because the biggest problem, according to Musk, we have with is our interface with humans for our computer. And the problem is we're limited by our meat sticks.
Yep.
These 10 bulky fingers are not nearly as fast as our brain, our processor. Neuralink, in theory, will eventually get to the point where it can read enough of our synapses to where we can effectively just think with a computer, if you will.
Yeah.
Do you think we're going to hit that level? And how do you think that's going to affect that knowledge gap, if you will?
So I will say I have a cybersecurity background, and the idea of wiring a chip into my brain is something I don't think I will ever be comfortable with. So I'm more of a fan of OpenAI's alleged device that they're working on with Johnny Ives, which is set to kind of try and solve that same problem of rethinking what computers mean in the era of AI. What does our input device look like? So I think Neuralink is incredible, especially in the context of people with disabilities like vision impairments and quadriplegic cases and stuff like that. I think it's an incredible thing. I personally don't think that the masses are going to sign up to put a chip in their brain. I think that what will more than likely happen is that we will see the death of the smartphone and the laptop, and we will transition into kind of AR glasses and or some other futuristic medium that allows us to communicate more efficiently with our technology.
Interesting because I would disagree on that one. I think
Okay.
if it gets there, I think people will be lining up, borrowing the $1 million it costs, right, to get a
Yeah.
chip implanted in their brain. Because the moment you could think the internet, you're superhuman intellectually. You are now worth you now have the combined value of the internet and a human combined, right? You're a cyborg at that point.
Yeah.
The value of a cyborg that could think with the internet without delay, effectively, if you will, it's going to be so incredibly valuable. People will be lining up, beating each other to be the first to get it because you get one of those implanted, and you are now you're superhuman. You get superpowers. I think
Yeah.
as technology gets better and we could get to a headset that's not non-invasive procedure. If we get a headset where you can wear a hood that's got a bunch of things on it or whatever, right? Sure, adoption will be easier, but it's going to go there no matter what because I think the value is going to be too big for people to pass up.
Yeah, and so I agree on the non-invasive part of that. A headset, a Neuralink headset, I personally would be 100 times more comfortable with than an implant. Again,
There,
just from a security
there will be
standpoint.
black market shops taking them out of people, putting them into other people. I guarantee it.
Yeah, and that's where and that's again where
It's
from a
terrifying to
security
me, but yeah,
standpoint, I get concerned on.
hardware
So
in the brain.
yeah, and even within that too, in computer science, there's terms of read and write. You can read data and you can write data. So the ability to read data from the internet into your brain is not as concerning to me as the ability to write data into your brain. The ability to
Yeah,
write data into the brain is I
terrifying.
I, I understand the potential being otherworldly, let's say. it is also an incredible security concern to me. I think in today's world, especially with like quantum compute and AI, the offensive cybersecurity is so far ahead of the defensive cybersecurity that I personally would not, again, interface anything that can write to my brain. I like to think I got a good brain and I value it, so I don't really want to mess with
Are you
that.
familiar with Shadowrun, the Shadowrun universe?
No, I'm not.
It's a late 70s, early 80s tabletop role playing game similar to Dungeons and Dragons, but it's set
Okay.
in a cyberpunk future. It was actually 20. God, I think we've already passed when its future was originally, but either way, the idea is magic came back to the world, but we're also in the era of tech. And the
Yeah.
big thing is everyone gets data jack, not everyone, but lots of people get data jacks implanted in their brain, which is basically what Neuralink is in real life. They had in a tabletop RPG, 50 years ago.
Yep.
Um, but one of the big things was the it was ice, black ice, and white ice, and those were your hacking programs, your defense for your own brain, and then people trying to attack it. And yeah, the thing was back in this, in the Shadowrun universe, was bad guy hackers or systems can use programs to then directly attack your brain and fry people's brains type thing. And you sit there and what was 50 years ago sci-fi is now an actual conversation is the crazy part. Like, I'm not trying to scare anyone here, but the truth is that's an actual conversation now. It's in the realm of reality of possibility, not even possibility of actual reality at this point. And so
Yeah.
you sit there and you go, wow, look at the implications of this. But I think there we're starting to get a little carried away on the future of AI, which to me is really fun. Let's come back to today a bit, if you don't mind. AI
Yeah.
integrations is out to democratize AI. The
Yeah.
big players are out there, they're already getting in. The barrier to entry, number one, is knowledge. Obviously, another barrier to entry is cost. Tell me a bit about how AI integrations is using its flagship product, Ava, which we haven't even talked about yet. If you want, give us a bit of an introduction on Ava and tell us how we're going to use that to democratize AI.
Yeah. So Ava, if you were to develop a custom customer service chatbot for your business and you needed to hire a developer to build that ground up, we're talking tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that's cost prohibitive for a lot of businesses. So what we've done is we've developed this product and we sell it for 50 bucks a month and 10 cents a message because with thousands of small businesses using it, we can recoup the cost of the development. So, now your local pizza restaurant doesn't have to develop a customer service AI in house costing, tens or hundreds of thousands. They can pay 50 bucks a month and 10 cents a message and get a really high quality AI chatbot that embeds in websites and mobile apps. And as I alluded to earlier, eventually POS systems and phone systems as well. When I say eventually, I will go ahead and publicly say our goal is in the next 6 months to have that over the phone POS integrated AI system for your average SMB.
So, with this though, is this just like a generic chatbot then that, is this just like Chat GPT, but, oh, yay, it links to my website now?
So great question, Ben, and that's where a lot of the secret sauce kind of comes in. And one thing I like to tell small businesses is you're not going to win the algorithm battle, you're not going to win the compute battle, but the data battle is where small businesses have an advantage. They have a lot of unique data to their business and how their business operates, how they want to interact with their customers, etc. Just living in the digital world we do, most businesses have websites. So Ava is ChatGPT powered. I'll even be more specific than that. It's currently powered by GPT 4.1. We can get into why later if you want to talk about the pros and cons of different models and stuff like that. But we overlay a ton of proprietary data, both from our clients and our own experiences, to make it a customer service a version of ChatGPT 4.1 that knows all about your business. And I say customer service as that's one of our most widely applicable use cases right now. Ava can even be configured to be an internal co-pilot as well. We're starting to see these co-pilots emerge in the Microsoft suite and the Google suite, etc. Those are great, but limited to the data within your Microsoft and Google accounts. So we can actually even make versions of Ava that are internal facing. And for example, when you onboard an employee, there's a ton of documentation. Employee handbooks, standard operating procedures, all that stuff. Imagine having a co-pilot that just knew all of that for your employees to go, hey, what's the PTO policy at X business? And boom, it just gives you the answer in 10 seconds rather than having to scroll through and find all that stuff manually.
Gotcha. So it's a custom chatbot, and is this, I don't want to get too technical, but is this effectively then building a customized RAG model chatbot for people's individual websites?
Yeah, so RAG is one of the ways to do that. There's also, tool calling and CAG. CAG. So I'll de-techify these a little bit. RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. So when the AI is processing its question, it's going to retrieve the information it thinks is relevant to that, query or conversation or question. And then CAG is Augmented Generation, meaning it has all of the context before it retrieves that query. And then a tool call is allowing it to go find outside data. So a tool call, programmatically speaking, it's a way for these AIs to access data that's not inherently in them. So, for example, you could have a tool call into your Shopify inventory to check what items are in stock right now.
Gotcha. So the advantage to this over using just like Chat GPT to ask about a website is it's actually tied into the information of the website and is personalized in that sense. Now,
Correct. Correct.
AIs are known to hallucinate.
Yeah.
If people are going to be putting a chatbot on their website, how do you make sure that it's not promising people stuff that you can't deliver?
Yeah. So there's no such thing as 100% certainty in life with anything, I'd say. But we aim for a 99.999% certainty. As a climbing guide, that's something I really internalized is you're never 100 or 0% certain of any outcome, but everything lies in between there. So with that being
You
said,
follow the rules and you might just make it out alive.
ideally, right? And if you're going to do something 1,000 times, you better be not 99% sure, but 99.99. And if you're going to do something a million times, like queries to Ava, those nines keep going. So basically, the way that we do that, without giving away again too much secret sauce, but on the mission to democratize AI, is there's a certainty score. And so us as humans, if you ask me a PhD level physics question, my certainty on it's going to be pretty low, and I'm going to go, oh, I should research that. I don't really know, you know. And so we basically built that into Ava, where if Ava's not 90+% certain of an answer, it's going to say, sorry, I don't know about this question. Could you give me a follow up or a little more context, or please contact the business owner, etc. We haven't had a problem with hallucinations in our implementation of AI.
Gotcha. And then, yeah, tell me a bit more about Ava. Like, who's this made for? What kind of businesses is this designed for? Who's going to get value out of this?
Ava is a value proposition to any small business with a website, or even small and medium businesses with a website. I like to say if you don't have an in-house IT department with an AI specialist, you could probably save some time and effort and just use Ava rather than try and figure it out yourself. So Ava is really designed to make your website more efficient. So if you have a website and you're getting website traffic, one thing that I like to do when we're doing demos with some of our customers is, if, just by the nature of websites, the bigger they are, the more information gets buried, right? So it can take your customer, say, a minute or two to just find the blog post that might have answered their question. Whereas, and in today's world, people are instant gratification to the max. So with that instant gratification, people don't like waiting a minute or two for their information, and that's only going down. So rather than waiting that whole minute or two, they just ask Ava, and within, under a second, typically, they're going to have their response.
Interesting. So let me real quickly do this. Okay, so here's the AI integrations website, and this Ava over here is a real life functioning Ava chatbot, right?
Oh yeah,
Is
on
there a
the
difference
hot seat
between
now.
using this one here and the one for demo Ava here in the corner?
Nope, they are the same product, just a different way of playing with them or seeing them on the website.
All right, so what should I ask Ava about AI integrations?
Why don't you ask it about our team? Ask who's on the AI integrations team. See if it knows about you there, Ben.
All righty. Hang on. Got to put the registered trademark in there.
You should. I went through a lot to get that.
All right, let's see what it has to say.
Yeah, don't worry about punctuation.
I always do. Ava, the AI integrations team is led by CEO Spencer Thompson and COO Killian Donovan, supported by a network of over 300 developers. Gonna need to fix that one.
Yep.
Supported by a network of over 300 developers and sales professionals. Here's a bit more about the leadership. Blah, 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 blah. About our team includes full stack developers, expert machine learning, AI engineers. We need to
Yeah.
update our about page.
Well, no, actually, we need to update our Ava. I've been so busy working on our clients' Avas and coding and doing stuff like this with you. I haven't updated our Ava in a while, so that's emphasis on that. Next time you're going to put our Ava on the hot seat, let me know.
Sorry. What's it? Oh, should we
Yeah,
check one out in action? Like a
go to Bighorn Steel.
Bighorn Steel, huh?
Yeah,
Alrighty. Bighorn Steel. What should I ask it?
click that power shingle button. It's one of
Power
their
shingle?
primary offerings.
All right, let's see what we get.
And this one I am up on top of, so it should
That's
give you a
fine.
very good response.
Yes, Power Shingle is an innovative solar panel system that serves as the roof of your structure. Oh, that's cool. It features
Yeah.
unique. Oh, I've read about these. I
Yeah.
didn't realize we were working with them. That's cool. Unique water shedding design that eliminates the need for costly subroofing, keeping everything beneath clean and dry. Power Shingle panels are bifacial, meaning they gather sunlight from both sides, maximizing energy production. Made from over 90% recycled American steel and can be certified Econic Nuclear's net zero carbon steel. Authorized distributor. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So
Traditionally, if you're on Bighorn's website, that information is there. You'd have to go digging for it, right? You're gonna have
right.
to hit a drop down, and you're gonna have to go to solar, and nothing to do with the way their website is designed. They've got a beautiful website. Actually, we're partnered with their web designer. He's a great guy, but it's just the limitation of a website versus a chat interface.
Nice. I just realized the Fujiyama Sushi one. It has mine from my last time I was playing with it. When is it open? Lets you know. It asks about reservations. Friday stays open. Saturday they stay open later. Do you serve nori? Yes, we do serve nori. Seaweed is used in many of our sushi rolls, including popular options like the California roll. What if I don't like
Yeah.
raw fish? And it gives you all the options for what's available for that too. So once again, it can answer. Looks like it's answering the questions that normally someone would have to pick up a phone and answer.
Yeah, or respond to an email. And this is especially relevant in e-commerce where your customers are global, right? So, no small business can afford to have 24/7 customer support at 2 a.m. When someone from Africa, let's say, asks a question, your response time is going to be 6 to 8 hours at max, or at best. Sorry, if they ask that question at 2 a.m.
Mhm.
as a small business. And again, people aren't patient in today's world. We are in the
No.
world of instant gratification. So
Yes.
that customer getting that response then could be the difference in a buying decision.
Agreed.
And actually, funny, you scroll down this page, that Woodshark Co. That screenshot you'll see to the right is of an e-commerce store that has had great success doing exactly what I just mentioned. They have a global audience base, so having Ava on their website is really helped them with those midnight questions, as we like to put it. But let's not talk too much about Ava.
Yeah, no problem. I just wanted to take a look at the website here real quickly.
Yeah, more than willing to do an Ava centric podcast later.
And we definitely will. Let me figure out how to here we go. Pull that back down. There we go. Okay, so what else did you want to chat about today, Spencer?
I kind of wanted to chat about what's going on in the world of AI coding. Is AI coding is getting a lot of press right now. And first, I'd like to chat about why is AI coding kind of this first frontier. And so,
do you mind starting out by actually just explain what is AI coding?
Yeah, so traditional software development, like I said, you're going to be typing out code, going to Stack Overflow, researching documentation, and pulling it all together manually.
Okay.
AI has made this process quite literally 100, if not more, times efficient if you know how to use the tools effectively. And one of the things a question that's kind of coming up a lot is why is coding kind of this first frontier that, let's say, it's going to get mastery of?
Right.
And in my opinion, as humans, we think in human language. So we see the world in words.
Mhm.
Computers see the world in code. They think in code. So actually, it is easier for a lot of these models to give you a response in Python than plain English, which is crazy for us to kind of comprehend, but it's the way it works. So
It
to
is
do
funny, that's something I never thought of before, the fact that computers think in computer language effectively.
Correct. Yeah. And so it's one less, call it, translation they have to do. So, we'll even go into a human element. If you're bilingual and, you're speaking to someone in your second language, a lot of the times in your head, you're having to translate that into your native
Yes, you still
language.
think in your primary language.
Correct. So that creates, problems. Like there's different ways that different languages say
Mhm.
things, do things, etc. And that's why, a lot of the times a native speaker will be like, oh, I can tell this is your second language. So computers natively speak code, which means you can cut out that translation aspect of it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and so then AI coding is using AI to be more efficient with your coding. The term that's gotten really, really popular that was coined by Andre Karpathy is called vibe coding. I'd like to clarify even within that. So vibe coding has gotten both a lot of good and a lot of negative PR because if you just sit down and watch the code go and you don't understand any of it, you're not going to be in a good position to quality control. Kind of on the note of the conversation we had earlier of, well, when it's smarter than you, how can you check it?
Yeah.
So the people that don't know how to be traditional software engineers can make cool things now with AI, but they can't quality control the cool things they're making. Whereas traditional software engineers, it's like you gave them superpowers. An analogy I made when discussing with another business owner who does things similar to us, a great guy. He was saying, I said to him, it's like, it'd be like giving a 16-year-old a Formula One car versus giving, Michael Schumacher a Formula One car. Yes, it has the same potential, but if you don't know how to use the tools and you don't have the experience to say, this is how I do this, then you're going to crash, especially when you try to keep up with that Formula One driver if you're that 16-year-old. So I kind of wanted to prefix the AI coding talk with that. I think it is absolutely phenomenal, but I do not think it is this magical box that a lot of people are making it out to be, to where
Mhm.
you can just, conjure an app into the world. And actually, the people that take that approach, on the note of security, again, in my security background, they're getting hacked because they can't quality control their own code.
Okay, so something I see popping up all the time is I see ads constantly for create your own videos, create this, create that, everything just drag and drop, easy as can be. AI will do it all for you. Is there validity
Yeah.
to those things?
Um, so yes, there's validity, but again, it's quality control. And as someone who takes pride in what we do here at AI Integrations, for example, we don't merge any code that myself or one of our engineers hasn't reviewed. Trust but verify is a saying that I find applicable in so many things in life. You, for
Just
example, I
verify.
know you use AI in your marketing, but then you don't just let it go willy nilly. You go in and you use your marketing experience to verify the information.
Uh,
Correct?
that's where that whole concept of what about when it gets too smart, right? Scares me is I'd say I'm one of the few people out there who calls bullshit on AI frequently in marketing because I know when it's lying. And the thing is, there's not many of us left that do, right? And
Yeah.
as what I think it was Altman you mentioned was saying, our kids won't ever be in that position. And
Correct.
that to me is scary. They
Yeah.
don't know how to question it. But yeah.
So there's two sides to every coin, as you know, and one of the upsides to that scary world, let's say, is as humans, we've become increasingly disconnected from each other, and say the human element's kind of been removed a lot. And so I can see how your average person would think AI is going to further that. I'm going to take an opposite stance. I personally believe in the long run, AI will allow us to be more human because what's going to matter most is your human interaction. I saw a study the other day on the jobs that are most secure from AI, let's say, and they're all human based jobs. We're never going to want an AI to be our kids' preschool teacher, for example. So I think it will value the human element more than the sheer knowledge and reciting of information element.
Interesting. So, on that side, that human element, I think there's a fascinating part there too, because I think as AI develops, people go, "Oh, it's going to take our jobs." Isn't that to a certain extent? Yes, you're going to see some of that for the jobs that AI is well suited for. But what that's going to do is it's going to allow for so much more human um, powered industries, et cetera, to really grow. So yeah, I think there's going to be some exciting stuff happening with that too. On
Oh
that.
yeah, and then I have a friend who's a really good nurse, and he's one of the head nurses at the hospital here in town, right? And originally, when we were talking about AI, he was super scared of it, to be frank. And now, our most recent conversation, he thinks it might be the thing that really unlocks healthcare. If we're able to automate, say, 50% of the paperwork, etc., in the healthcare process, that means, in theory, we could pass that discount on to the consumer. Now, will big healthcare do that? That's a whole nother
So
conversation, but it could make it much cheaper and much more abundant for us as consumers.
another just side note on the healthcare part there that's really cool. Another thing it's being used for is to, I'm not sure how familiar you are with pharmaceuticals, but they're using it to actually develop new molecules. Basically, figuring out okay, what molecules can be created that that haven't existed before to serve what indications, and the AI can model these things out and test them, and it'll discover new drugs that nobody ever thought of before because it's going to figure out new molecules used for new indications, and it's going to be able to take that. So not only is it going to be able to bring costs down by automating a lot of the paperwork, that side of the process. I mean, FDA applications alone is something where it could save hundreds of millions of dollars working there. But it's also going to bring us, I think, new advances in all these areas as well. Which, as a total side note, but just super exciting.
Oh, I completely agree. I think AI is going to be the cure to cancer eventually. Now, will that be a 5 year thing or a 10 year thing or a next year thing? I don't know too much about
But
medical
it
to really get into that, but I do think AI will be how we solve cancer.
may not be a 5 year thing, may not be a 10-year thing, but it will be an AI thing.
Agreed. So let's circle back to the
Yeah.
AI coding. I'd like to give some advice out there to people who are AI coding. First of which would be to understand, the code that the AI is putting out, as we talked about earlier, quality control, human in the loop. The more vital the code, i.e., if it has anything to do with passwords or payment processing, I would heavily recommend understanding that from your own perspective, not just clicking accept on what the AI is putting out there. With that said, AI coding tools are incredible, and I'd like to just shout out a few of them. I use Cursor, I use Claude Code, I use the Google CLI. I want to chat about the Google CLI real quick too. It came out I think 2 weeks ago, maybe a little less. On the note of data is one of those three pillars we started off talking about, right? And so Google right now is allowing basically free usage of their AI coding tool for anyone that wants to use it so they can get more data on how people are using AI to code. What that means for you as the consumer is you have a agent or an AI that's better at coding than, let's say, 75, 80% of software engineers that you can use pretty much unlimitedly on Google's free plan to help you do things, which, another thing that's going to benefit society is software is about to get a lot cheaper as AI gets a lot better at coding. A little thing on my personal workflow I'd like to recommend. As even some of the engineers AI integrations, I was teaching this to the other day. I'm a Mac guy. I like Apple. I like Mac. So on that note, there's a ChatGPT desktop app. That desktop app allows it to interface with things that aren't in your web browser. Most people traditionally use ChatGPT in the web browser. I would encourage you, if you are an Apple user, I don't know about Windows and Linux, but they have a desktop app for Mac. And then within that, you can connect it to your terminal. Two of the things I mentioned earlier are Claude Code and Google CLI. Those are both terminal-based coding agents. So what I'm doing quite frequently right now for my AI coding is I'm connecting ChatGPT with their deep research functionality that's connected to my GitHub. And ChatGPT acts as, we'll call it, a product manager. It can review my GitHub and all of our code and go and research on the internet and kind of act as the 10,000 foot overview, right? And then ChatGPT can then kind of, in a sense, pass this off to Google and Claude CLI. So with Google's being free right now, and quite frankly, it is not as good as Anthropic's at coding, but free versus money, you should use both appropriately. So you use the Google CLI as, we'll call it, your junior developer. connected to your ChatGPT. So you do this report, a deep research within your GitHub, and then that will make you should change XYZ. Hand that off to the Google CLI, see what it does. It's probably going to do 80 to 90% of it right off the rip. And then the things that it didn't get right, go ahead and hand that off to Claude Code and pay the money for that extra 10 to 20%. And again, it's important to remain the human in the loop and review these things. But that's a setup that I've got running here that I think is absolutely incredible. I'd also like to shout out to Cursor. I pay $20 a month for Cursor, and I am not joking. I have used over $150 of API calls in July alone. So Cursor is also, providing a product to the public much cheaper than it costs them. They're actually in a little bit of backlash right now about their pricing. We'll save that for another video as well. But I think their pricing is incredible. If you know how to use it and you use it well, you can get hundreds and hundreds of dollars of API calls to these frontier models for $20 a month. And, it really is the VS Code killer that everyone is making it out to be. I think I saw a thing that 90 something percent of Y Combinator startups are using Cursor. And, that's a pretty compelling stat to me.
Nice. Anything else you want to cover before we wrap it up here?
Yeah. Just last little thing to mention, as and on the note of current news, definitely got a little sidetracked away from Meta and their poaching of talent, let's say. So again, the reason they're doing this is so one of Meta's bigger acquisitions to date, it might even be their largest acquisition to date, is a very recent acquisition of Scale AI. They paid $14 billion and some change for 49% of the company, and then Alexander Wang, who's the CEO of Scale AI, is now going to lead Meta's superintelligence lab. And so in that acquisition, they did two things. They acquired one of the best AI minds in the world, in Alexander Wang, in my opinion. If you want to learn more about him, he did a Litecoin podcast with Y Combinator recently. Would highly recommend that. So they acquired him as the talent, or call it the algorithmic component. And then Scale AI is actually one of the biggest providers of data to all of the companies we've talked about this morning or afternoon, depending on where you're at. So Meta, in a two-part thing, acquired one of the best engineers and minds in AI in the world, and one of the best data sources for AI in the world. And that's why they paid $14 billion to get that 49% stake in Scale AI. Additionally, they've gone and offered what would seem as ridiculous compensation packages, numbers that most of us haven't heard of before. They're actually going to pay Apple's former head of AI more than Tim Cook himself makes, to put it in perspective.
Crazy.
Yeah, and that's because of our trifecta. That algorithm component is driven by humans as of right now. And you need the top 1% of the top 1% of the top 1% to be competitive in that algorithmic realm. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to make a note on that and kind of put some tech nerd behind these big numbers.
I love it. Well, thank you everyone for who joined today, and anyone who watches this later. Thank you so much. We are planning to start podcasting with the AI Integrations podcast on either a weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly basis based on interest, how much we have to say, and what people are interested in. Please, if you have any questions or any topics you would like us to address, drop them in the comments. This live streamed on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter or X. It'll also be posted on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, and X for the AI integrations site. So please feel free to drop a comment in any one of those locations. We will find them and happy to address any of your questions, etc., in our next podcast. Thanks again for joining us. Have a wonderful day. God bless and see you next week. Bye-bye.
Cheers, everyone.